Start spreading the news.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
New York, I love you. I love New York.
Rose trying to get open, fires away. Bang! It's over! The Bulls win at the buzzer! Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection. Puts up the three. Won't go. Rebound Bosh. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang!
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. I am also the owner of Off the Ball Network, and we got a monster show for you today. Big trades going on, some potential trades coming down the pipeline, and I got my guy, Walker Bailey. Walker, what's going on, bro?
Not much, man. I'm happy to be here. Not much else to do. I'm snowed into the house.
Snowed in a part of the country where you don't get snow, so
Right.
that must be crazy. Well, how often do you guys get snow? Like, what is it, like once every
It's
couple of
literally
years?
nah. So like you usually get some level like once every year, but the problem is that once every few years you get what
Hey,
people
monster.
would consider is like a big not like a big deal snow, but like we got probably like 8 inches, and then it's like over multiple days. Where like this like kind of down here, your town is not necessarily equipped to handle such things.
Mhm.
Um, so then they just quit trying. They just stop and they just let it happen, and everybody just goes home and businesses close. And I'm fortunate because gas stations stay open here, and I live within walking distance. So if I really ever need anything, I just walk to the gas station. Um,
There you go.
yeah, but like beyond that, like you're basically living out of your house, or in my situation, your house and a gas station for until everything sorts itself out.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm from New York. We're used to all the snow and all that. So the streets they look good after an hour. Felt like it. I was like, oh, got to get to work and all that. But there was a big trade that happened today, and we kind of knew it was kind of lingering and all that. And obviously, Pascal Siakam, no longer a member of the Toronto Raptors. He is now a member of the Indiana Pacers. So he, along with a second-round pick, goes to the Pacers, and the Pacers receive, because now the Pelicans were also involved in this to make money match and all that. So the Raptors receive Bruce Brown, who was acquired this offseason from the Pacers. So he goes to Toronto. Jordan Nwora, Kyra Lewis, who was a top, a lottery pick from the Pelicans a few years back, he goes and deal along with 2 first-round picks and 3 first-round picks, a 2 2024 picks and a 2026 first-round pick in the deal that happened today. So, and this is with some feeling that he's going to get re-signed, because it's kind of, there's been some rumblings like, why would you give up so many picks if, we're not going to re-sign him? There's been some rumblings that he probably will re-sign, and I think his max, from what Bobby Mark said, is like 5 for like 264, something like 244, something like that. It's his max is pretty high and all that. But they make the trade, they get the deal done. So what does this mean for the Pacers? Because obviously they got their foot on the gas pedal, and they're trying to go full throttle and trying to make a run this year. So is this a good move for them? Was this the right move for them?
I mean, I think if it's the only move, like over the course of their contention window, or what they view as their contention window, then I would say no. But I think it's like if you feel like you can hang on to them long term and maintain some level of flexibility where you can do some other stuff, then sure. Like, I mean, it's fine. Like, this probably makes them like a second round playoff team at this point this year, and gives them the ability to win a playoff series. Like, he's going to kind of fit into what they want to do. So, I mean, I like it. Like, I feel like Toronto, honestly, for Toronto to get this much back in return at this point of the Pascal Siakam stuff, that felt like a win for them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that is a win for them.
And like, because it did feel like that ship had sailed and that they were going to kind of get pennies on the dollar. But I mean, they got kind of what like an old school NBA trade deadline, like buying a star trade look like. So I'm sure they'll hold on to Bruce Brown or whatever, and then the picks are what's important. But I think like I did think it was important to note that the picks were in 2024 and 2026. Which, if you've listened to any of our stuff, like we've said, the 2023 draft with Wemby and then the 2025 drafts are the ones where you want to have picks.
Yeah.
And the Pacers maintain their flexibility there, and stayed in the drafts that you want to stay in. So
exactly, like you said, like, and they had multiple picks in last year's draft, so they didn't really, like you said, this draft is not strong at the top, so why not? Hey, we're not really in rebuilding mode. So who cares if we get rid of these 2 picks? They don't really mean anything to us right now, so that kind of makes, I know people, and at first I was like, on 3, I was like, it depends what first round picks they're getting up. And when I saw it was 2 2024 picks, I was like, all right, that's not going to really hurt them. Like I said, 2025 is, we all know, is the draft. And last year, and they did good in last year's draft that just passed. They got some good players, but I think, and it also maintains their flexibility because it'll allow them to re-sign, by doing the trade now. It allows them, to have some flexibility in the offseason to re-sign, to re-sign some guys and all that. Obi Toppin's going to be a free agent. It'll allow them to re-sign him and all that. And obviously you get, Pascal's bird rights and all that, and you'll be able to re-sign him and go over the cap. So I think this is this is probably the most realistic move they can make. And everybody keeps talking about, oh, who's going to get – it's like, this is probably the biggest name we're going to see. There might be another – we'll talk about it a little bit that could be, but that's probably something that, will take a lot.
See, that's more of an off-season thing, I think, where we're just kind of forecasting out a little bit. Like,
yeah.
He's got to get his run first.
Yeah, that's more of a bigger trade, and we'll talk about that after this. But so you mentioned with the Pacers, you think this is a second-round team. Do you think that they're going to try to make another move, to try to really,
I think maybe
really capitalize off Halliburton?
Yeah. Maybe around the edges, like go get some veterans who, some veteran role players who have been there and done that and won some important games, won some playoff games where you kind of go in and because you do just still have a ton of youth. And like while Pascal has been around and, he is one of those vets that's won playoff games and won important playoff series and stuff like that. I think that, I think adding more of those guys that can help develop like your Matherins, your and some of your other younger guys and just help them prepare for playoff basketball. Like I think you'll see more like that. I don't think
they probably want to free up cool body minutes.
Yeah, probably some. I'm trying to think of who else is over there. Like I just think you want more experience. Like if you're gonna go win a playoff series, like they're the 6 right now. Like with this move, you can probably jump a spot or 2. Like, but like your Nemhards, your Benedict Matherins, like Aaron Nesmith's a starter for this roster. Like guys like that who have not played just a ton of, your Jarris Walkers, like guys like that. I just think for those types of guys, like it'd be good to have some veteran presence who's been there, done that, and kind of won some big series. So I think that stuff like that, it's kind of funny. Like my first reaction to the trade had nothing to do with Pascal. I was like, oh, they lost Bruce. Like that sucks. Bruce is a winner.
Yeah. I thought Bruce, he was obviously an integral part of what the Denver Nuggets did last year to win a championship and all that. And it felt like, when I heard the rumors, I was like, I didn't even think about Bruce Brown, to be honest. I thought that's a player that they would is the stats and all that aren't going to show in the regular season, but he's someone in the playoffs that you're going to need if you're going to go against, Miami or the Knicks or teams like that, where that's where you really see his impact. So I was kind of surprised that they kind of let him go because I think that might hurt a little bit more than we think.
Yeah, that was my first reaction. Was just like, it was just Like that guy's a winner and literally is off a championship and knows what it takes. Like
I was a little surprised.
As weird as that is, like that's not really what you grow to expect.
I guess the money. I mean, the money had to.
That's what I said. It's like I don't think it was a dissatisfaction with Bruce Brown. I think it was probably more of like a hey, we have to pair contracts if we want to make this work. And Bruce was just the most viable option. Because with those things, I'm sure the Raptors didn't want back like bad contracts or whatever. They probably just wanted to, they wanted someone useful to some extent. So I'm sure that's kind of what they did. And
yeah,
I mean, I think
that kind of sucks. That's gonna hurt them because
you know who it sucks for? Bruce Brown.
Yeah, because he went to Indiana because he saw the potential in this team and all that, and obviously he got paid too, which helped and all that. But now you kind of take a step back in Toronto. So I wonder if he's someone that gets moved really quick, because the Lakers are kind of interested in trying to get a player like him. I could see him having a lot of teams interested. So I don't know if he'll be a Raptor for long.
Your cap strap, but you can't tell me like a team like Miami wouldn't want Bruce Brown, who's kind of like a tweener connector piece. Like you couldn't tell me
Philadelphia.
You couldn't tell me that a team like New York wouldn't be interested in having someone else that could shoot the three ball, Tibbs doesn't like spelling his starters minutes anyways. But I mean, if theoretically he became interested in that, like another guy who could spell, Julius or OG or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, he'll have a market. I can't imagine that Toronto's just going to want to like hold on to him, because I'd imagine that with this move, they're trying to hold on to their draft pick and be bad enough that they can make a pick in the high end of this draft to pair with Scotty, and just kind of start building more of a true core. I mean, I think
they really blew it up. We thought last year this was possibly going to be what they did, but they traded for Young Pirtle, who's now hurt. And that's
the Pirtle trade never made sense to begin with, because like they were bad as it was, or relatively bad. They were not a contender, and then you go buy a middle of the road center who's just kind of a good, like not good enough to probably win you championships or guard really any of the elite centers, but he's just he's kind of a stable piece where he's not a problem, but he's also not going to win you much. Like, and then you give up a first round pick in your immediate future to do that. Like, it's just like that's just nasty work. Like, really, really just nasty work. Like,
yeah. I mean, it was protected, but I mean, it's top 7 protected and all that. But still, to give up anything for it didn't make sense, and it looks worse now.
You're looking at potentially like a top 10 pick. Like, I mean, and like I know this is a weaker draft, but you're looking at potentially like a top 10 pick being forfeited because of that trade, and it's just nasty. Like, we've talked about Masai a lot, kind of privately. Just he needed this one. Like, he needed a win. He really did. He needed to remove some of the stuff that he had let go, because
didn't make sense and all that. But it seems like the Toronto Raptors are in rebuild mode, and Pascal is gone. They traded OG Anunoby, to my Knicks a few weeks back. So things are, they got RJ Barrett now. They got Emmanuel quickly. We'll see what happens in the offseason with Emmanuel, if they re-sign him or anything.
Yeah.
Scotty Barnes, so they're in rebuild mode. Not a full true rebuild, because they still have some good pieces there, but it's definitely
this is not the time to start a rebuild. Like, the time. This is not the class. Like, maybe you get just a solid player, but I don't know that you're going to get anything franchise changing out of this draft.
Yeah.
Even if you maintain your pick and pick in the top 5, I'm just not sure. Like, I'm not sure what that looks like.
Yeah, and like we said, that's why Indiana probably kicked the tires on those first 2024 picks, and like, this draft is not it's not like, sexy.
This is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity for us to, go get a player that can maybe get us deeper into the playoffs and get some more experience, and we don't feel like we're losing a lot in this class.
Exactly.
I don't know whose picks they were. I'm sure it was their own and then someone else's. But like, you're talking about potentially picks in the teens or something like that. And if you're talking about picks in like the teens or whatever, then you're really, really not missing out on much.
Yeah, to get a player of Pascal's, caliber and all that, yeah, it's definitely worth it. So I think it's a good trade for Indiana. It helps bolster there, and it helps, give them a better chance. Right now they're sitting at the 6th seed right now, but obviously Hallie is out. He's, it's not a season-ending injury, so he should be back. I don't know when. Maybe, I think he's going to reevaluate in the next few weeks, but they're sitting 6 right now. They're tied with the Knicks, for the 6th seed. So they're going to be in that range and all that. And, having Pascal, who's played some big time minutes in the playoffs and all that, you're going to need that,
Just got to take some off Tyrese too, like down the stretch.
You need a guy who can essentially get you a bucket, because they didn't really have that type. I mean, Mathurin, they wanted to, but he hasn't yet taken that next leap. Buddy Hield's more of a 3-point shooter and all that. So Toppin is more of like, a rim run. I know he shot the 3 well this year, but he's not someone that, can.
Yeah, but he's one of the. He's a catch and shoot, not like a get off the bounce and do stuff like that. Like, and it's probably going to be a shoot a low volume and just kind of like be a little bit more efficient than that. Like, yeah, they needed another guy who, if it came down to it and Tyrese swings the ball off, they need someone who can create their own shot and go get you some.
And that's what they got. So and not for as steep as price as you maybe think. I know the initial report just said 3 first-round picks, and sometimes you're like, oh man, is he worth 3 first round picks?
I think they changed that. Like, I think what changed the perception on that is last year's deadline, which was when everybody basically gave a bazillion seconds and everybody was clinching their first-round picks, and it was because nobody really, really impactful was getting moved. And so I think like people see like the trade where someone gives up 3 first-round picks, and it's like, oh damn, that's a lot, but it's really not. It's just our perceptions changed because of how last year's trade deadline went, and just how the lack of first-round pick movement lately has kind of altered.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because OG got traded for essentially a second-round pick, and a bunch of just regular, rotational players.
He could have gotten way more than that, but because Masai clenched his pearls and held on and held on and held on, like, you're telling me that before Ja Morant got suspended, that the Grizzlies wouldn't have paid you like a relative premium for OG Anunoby to complete that picture instead of trying to do it with 3 guards and just throwing Marcus Smart in there? Like, that's how bad they wanted somebody to play the 3 that could defend, is that they put Marcus Smart at the 3. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, you're telling me something out of that type of franchise for OG.
100%. And Memphis would have been a perfect spot. Obviously Ja got hurt. So,
and the thing around here, I live an hour south of Memphis, so like everybody here is Grizzlies fans. Like, the thing is here, like, they're doing the typical small market thing where it's like they're clenching onto those picks because they want to be so sure that whatever move they make is the right move, that they don't realize that now in the modern league, your window can end in literally just like that. And now what you're seeing is, I don't know that their window is ending, but maybe the current window. But now I think they're approaching kind of a retool around those 3 guys where they're gonna have to get some guys, get some new blood in there, and try to rebuild that thing. Like, I think Vince Williams can play.
Solid.
And they gave him like a 3 for 13. Like, we talked about this with Julian Champagny, like back on like in the summer on the Spurs show. Like, Vince Williams is going to be a guy that gives you a little bit of a lot of different parts of basketball, and he can defend, he can shoot it a little bit. He's going to give you some decent game scoring. Like, there's just enough there where, like, you feel pretty good about, giving him a cheap contract, and he can be a high level role player for you at some point.
Yeah, that's what the Knicks did with Deuce McBride. Gave him 3 for 13.
And it's an easy contract. It's an easy contract to get off of if things really go south. I think they're approaching having to do some of that kind of stuff and then have to start drafting again. But what's killed Memphis is the fact that since they kind of drafted their core, they really have drafted like shit.
Exactly. That's where everything went wrong.
Everything went wrong when they started drafting guys like Zaire Williams up, like, around the top 10 or whatever, or they drafted. They've just had misses. Like they've just missed. So that's what's happened, because if they get the draft right the last few years, like probably telling a different story. Now, granted, a lot of this also dumbs down to Ja's decision
To their superstar player.
Like Ja needs,
but even with
Ja
even with Ja, if Ja was, everything was Gucci with him, they still had a lot of roster flaws on that team. Like the roster was definitely flawed, and they still, like I said, the draft misses and not having, not getting the right players and all that. There was definitely flaws there, but obviously Ja, definitely made that worse. But then they also had some big time injuries too, which just kind of hurt them. Steven Adams, out for the season before the season even starts. Clark's, he's not coming back till he might be out again for the year, with the Achilles. Obviously Marcus Smart out, so they've had some big time injuries too, and obviously Ja Morant off the season now, so. So they've had some bad injuries, unfortunate injuries that hurt them, but roster construction is not the greatest. But like you said, capitalizing, like teams not capitalizing like right now, because like you said, like look at Atlanta. A few years ago, we thought Atlanta and their core was going to be, something. Pelicans core, we thought that. Now those are team, Pelicans, on a good night, they can beat anybody, but then they're just so inconsistent, but it's like, you got to take advantage of this, because the window is a lot shorter than people think. You hold on to these picks and it's like, oh crap, now these don't mean anything. So the window to make a move, you got to be able to do it now. I like what the Patriots. I like when the Cavaliers made the move for Donovan. Go shoot for, especially for your small market team like that doesn't attract free agents. Hey, let's take a shot. We feel like we got a good core here that'll build. And listen. It's still the verdict's still out whether that's going to work for Cleveland, but you got to give him credit for trying.
And the other thing Memphis did wrong the first time was that nobody could shoot the ball. Nobody could shoot the ball, and
they relied on Luke Kennard, who's can't do anything else, but he can shoot. But
who's also a turnstile on defense or whatever. But it is what it is. I mean, they'll have to get it right. But again, this kind of all just ties back to Toronto needed a small market team like that to pay a premium for one of those guys, and they held on and tried to milk it for everything that it was worth, and they ended up getting a lot less than what they could have. Yeah, they got a lot less than what they could have.
I think they definitely just wanted more of the picks and then getting players in return like that. I think they wanted to take the chance, but it didn't work. I know Francis. I've talked to Francis, and he was all in on trying to get OG and all that. He thought that would be a good fit and all that, but obviously it didn't transpire like that. And, it's going to be rough for Memphis going the rest of the way. It's going to be rough for Memphis. So we'll see what happens with them. Toronto.
Makes for cheap tickets, though.
It makes – you got to probably get some crazy tickets to Memphis games right now. Crazy tickets. And if you need the tickets, go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code Off the Ball Network, all caps, for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek.com. Go to SeatGeek.com, use promo code Off the Ball Network, all caps, or download the app and you can score yourself maybe some free tickets to Memphis Grizzlies game, because it is going to be some, or any game. You're a Pistons fan, you might be able to get the whole family there for nothing. You're a Washington Wizards fan or a Charlotte fan or whoever is bad, you can be able to get the whole family there, but using the discount code Off the Ball Network, all caps, at SeatGeek.com, your number one place for all your ticket needs. All right, Walker, we got something else we want to talk about.
I'll tell you what, if I were the Celtics, personally, I don't think the guy that I would have guarding Victor Wembanyama would be Luke Cornett. I don't think that's
Cornett minutes versus Victor is wild. It is wild. Undefeated at home, the Boston Celtics, which is that's pretty impressive. But all right, Trae Young, the Atlanta Hawks they're like another team we talked about a few years ago. They were looking like they had a bright future
and all that.
Far from it. They're 16-23. They're sitting, they're tied with Brooklyn right now for the last play-in spot. But it's been rough season so far. Defensively, they are just absolute food. They could score, but they can't stop nobody. And it has been a struggle. They're trying to trade DeJounte Murray after trading for him. They're trying to trade, what's the guy's name? What's his name? Why am I blanking out on his name? The wing. What's his name?
Oh,
why am I blacking out his name?
He's obviously a really good player because of how much
he's so good. I can't think about his name. DeAndre Hunter, of course.
Yeah,
DeAndre Hunter.
They traded for Sadiq Bey and all that stuff.
They traded for Sadiq Bey, and there's nothing's worked. There's been obviously we've heard about all the trade rumors with DeJounte Murray and all that, but there's you mentioned just I asked you who wants to jump on the show and all that, and you brought up Trae Young. What does that look like? A trade for Trae Young? What would that entail? So I'm going to ask you that question. Trae Young, and that's not specifically to the Spurs, but what it does. First of all, you think the Atlanta Hawks would entertain it if the price is right and all that, and what will it cost?
So I think Atlanta is probably going to want to recoup a lot of that draft capital they lost. Like that's one of those that's going to be a draft pick oriented trade. So like Pascal got 3. I would think that Atlanta probably wants 3 and then a pick swap or 2. Plus, then you have to match contracts, and they're probably not going to want like food for contracts. They're probably going to want someone that they feel like they can put on the floor and play. Mm-hmm. So, like from a Spurs perspective, that probably is Keldon Johnson plus the draft capital, which is a lot.
So the Spurs, and before you even brought that up, I had to, I remember just having conversations with myself, like to think about Trae Young, San Antonio. Why aren't they trying to make this happen? And I know a lot of people are anti Trae Young, and we just talked about it, like how people question his defense and how that's kind of been overblown and all that. And like, also, what do you expect from a guy who is 5'11", 6 foot, 185 pounds? Like, I don't know what people are expecting from him, but he's a lot better defender than people give him credit for. But I know he has a negative. People just have negative feelings about it. He's kind of been disrespected, to be honest. Trae Young. It's just kind of crazy because he is a really good point guard, but that's a position you guys need. And you mentioned before, it's crazy how you guys insert a point guard of recent and you guys start to play better basketball, right? Which Trae Jones starts playing point. You're really your only point guard of the team. You actually start him, and he actually is playing really good, and he has been playing solid basketball for you guys. But
he has a 30-point game recently.
Yeah, so he's been very good.
Who's the better Trae? I mean, if we're being honest.
So I've even said the Spurs, like, and we've talked about what Spurs fit. We mentioned Emmanuel quickly. I keep saying like he's going to be a Spur because it just feels like he fits what they need, and I think there's some playmaking upside. Not a lot, but there is some playmaking upside with him. But the Trae Young thing is very intriguing because I feel like, I know it sound crazy to trade him if you're in Atlanta because he's just been a big, the face of the franchise. But you guys have assets. You guys have some players, but the assets are the big thing. And you have your face of the franchise in Victor Wembanyama. So it's not like you're trying to searching for that, that next guy. You have him. you have a future superstar on your team. So you're not trying to find that guy in the draft. You have him already. So why not try to pair him up? Because you also don't want to waste, he's young. You don't want to waste a year. I don't like wasting years. So Trae Young, San Antonio Spur. How does this happen? Could it happen?
Will
it happen?
So I like on the will it. I've said no, just because almost like I wouldn't be surprised if there's some PTSD from the DeJounte trade where like Atlanta's like, nah, like they got us bad last time. We're not doing this again. Like
Yeah,
I
of
wouldn't,
course.
because that is a real thing. Like where I think they
Of
might be
course.
like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. They don't want to deal with that. Yeah, yeah.
but like as far as will it happen? Like if I mean, like I said, like I think the package is looking like if you're telling me they offered him Keldon Johnson, Don Barlow, and like 3 firsts and then like a swap or two, like Atlanta would be crazy to not at least answer the phone and think about it.
In my head, trading Don Barlow is like he's like untouchable in my mind, but because I just have a weird obsession, like, and I just
I mean,
he was one of my guys.
I like him a lot, but my thing has always been with guys like that, where it's like, all right, like if you're gonna, I just struggle to see like how he can't be replaced. You
Yeah,
know
he's
what I'm saying?
definitely he's a replaceable player.
He is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so like that's really more like it's really more like if you had drafted Don Barlow in the first round, you're not as infatuated with him as you are with the fact that you found him as a
He's a
UDFA.
second round. Yeah, undrafted guy.
And so like that's really what the Don Barlow thing boils down to. A good player, don't get me wrong, but there is a reason he signed for a 2-way. Like so I mean, I bet like yeah, like something like that, or maybe Atlanta's enticed by one of your 2 young guards and like Branham or Wesley or something like that, and maybe you look at that. Although Branham's ass, but you know, I don't know. But I think it could be Keldon and another player, like, and then you throw in the 3 firsts and a swap or however that may be, like whatever that may be. Yeah, Barlow just blocked Jaylen Brown's layup off the glass. He's pretty good.
Untouchable.
Yep. But that's kind of the stuff I'm thinking about. Like, because like who else is gonna offer you that much for Trae Young? Like, because the reality is, like, if you're getting Trae Young, at least in my mind, it's because you have someone like Victor who you want to pair with, who you're trying to almost like you're trying to kind of help him develop and take him to the level that you know he can get to, which is kind of what the deal with Victor is, where like Victor is already a top 20 player in the NBA already right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, with Trae, he might be a top 10 player in the NBA.
I think it's a perfect match. Just look at what Trae did with Clint Capella.
I know.
And John Collins. Now you add a guy who's 7'5", 7'4",
that is already better than your favorite player.
Who's already approaching, being a top 15 player in the league, leading the league in blocks. Is going to develop into a very good perimeter player.
And without question, will win a defensive player of the year, which helps cover up what
will be as a defensive. Probably all NBA already defense, maybe all NBA defense this year for a second team. Why not try to go? And I also think there's also this aspect of like you have to try to keep Wemby happy. Like you got to start the process now of keeping him happy, because there's always going to be that fear that, like, yes, you're San Antonio, but yeah, Pop's probably going to be gone by the time his second contract's going to start. So you gotta have to make him happy, because if you continue to lose and you're losing 45, 50 games, well then we know in today's NBA, guys are gonna be like, nah, they're gonna, I'm out. I want to go. I'm gonna ask for a trade. So you gotta make him happy now. So Trae Young, and we've said this not even just trying to get Trae Young, but getting a point guard that can get him in the right spot that make his life easier is something that is essential in this, especially for this offseason for the San Antonio Spurs. So you have the assets, you have some solid players. I think if you're them, if it is something that's a real possibility, why not go for it? Why not go for it?
Well, and like it's like I always say, like nothing can stop you from calling them. I mean, they can block your phone number, they can tell you no. That does not mean that you can't call and try. Like, I mean, and that's kind of where you're at with those with that conversation because Atlanta hasn't really made him available. It's just like, but like you can see it coming. Like Trae Young.
Yeah. There's a feeling, like you said, we haven't really heard it, but it's like there's kind of that feeling that's not a crazy idea anymore.
And Rayford is on Twitter, like tweeting stuff about Wemby and liking tweets about Trae and Wemby playing together, where it's like this thing that like kind of even out
it's
of their
something, right? It's something.
Yeah, it's something where like it's almost like, and you got the leaked report from Matt Moore the other day that Trae Young would welcome playing with Wemby, like where they've like kind of started putting stuff out there where they're like, hey, like Trae's from that area of the country or whatever, like he can go back closer to home and play with a generational superstar where he doesn't have to carry the load anymore, and he can play for the greatest basketball coach to ever coach basketball. That's the type of thing that he seems to be welcoming. Like that's kind of how he views it, I guess. But it's just there's starting to be stuff in the atmosphere, and it's not like the Trae Young articles where you're like, all right, yeah, Trae Young is thinking about wanting to be traded. Here's this list of 5 teams that he's thinking about. No, like it's like, hey, Trae Young is open to Victor Wembanyama. Okay, I hear that. Like it's almost like it's a very pointed thing where it's like, hey, he's open to playing with this guy. He might even borderline want to play with this guy. That's where it seems to be at. We'll see kind of how it goes down the stretch. Like if the Hawks make a run to make the playoffs or something, and like, does that change? I don't know. But like it does feel like the Hawks are more trending towards a 10 seed and getting beat in that first play-in game or something like that. Yeah. And if that's what happens, then this offseason we might be having that conversation where it's, hey, like maybe we should think about trading Trae and just starting over. But the problem with starting over is we have no draft picks. So, maybe they just – and who knows, maybe part of it is, it's like the scene at a draft day. Atlanta calls, we'll give you Trae Young, but I want my MFing picks.
I want my picks back.
I want my picks back.
Picks back. Yeah. No, that's
I want Keldon effing Johnson just because I feel like it. Like maybe that's what happened.
And throw they wanted what was the kick returner that they wanted? Buddy David Putney.
Mm-hmm.
David Putney, yeah.
Right.
It could be that situation. Yeah, but Atlanta's in a very tough spot. They're going to be in a tough spot because they definitely didn't envision this it would get this bad. Especially when you traded everything you did for DeJounte, and now you have buyer's remorse because you went all in, and you thought the development of like AJ Griffin would he had some flashes last year, and now he's getting DMPs and stuff this year.
Yeah.
Clint Capella's not Clint Capella no more.
Kobe Buffkin hasn't been the instant contributor that we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, they're messing up my guy Kobe Buffkin, so we need Kobe Buffkin minutes.
He's in the G League stuff. He's in the G League. My guy Jarkel Joyner. That's probably not where he needs to be.
Yeah, Kobe Buffkin averaging 0.5 points in the NBA this year. That's disrespectful. We got to get him minutes, but this is probably more of an off-season thing, most likely. Because I'm sure they're still going to try to get to the playoffs to try to justify.
You would have to have a pretty massive pivot in the next few weeks. But it does seem like if you're trading DeJounte and you're talking about
what if they punt on DeJounte and they keep free falling? Do you go to the deadline and be like, oh man, you know what? Maybe we should just kick the tires on all this. This is going way worse than expected. And
I will say this, man, San Antonio. That DeJounte Murray trade was maybe one of the best trades in franchise history.
They saw the vision.
It was a heist. That was a heist.
They saw the vision. They just knew he wasn't going to fit, and they capitalized. They got a team that felt like we F them picks. We're going to be good. Adding DeJounte is going to help us get to that next level, and it didn't work out.
Saw him for what he was, though. And the thing with DeJounte is what's made the Atlanta thing so tenuous is he doesn't guard anymore.
That's the thing, defense, and that's why
with DeJounte is that he doesn't guard.
'Cause I've seen a lot of like the defensive metrics with him, and I'm like, oh, he's really fallen off. 'Cause that's what he was known for, is being this great defender and all that. But that's no longer the case because he's trying to get his bag and all that. He's trying to score more.
Antonio fans were saying before he kind of left or whatever was he was a stocks merchant, and like there's more to being a defender than being a stocks guy. And he had become like a stocks merchant and wasn't actually locking down opponents' best players like he used to. And so that's kind of where like now you're not even
because last year he had moments where he was locking people up, and I don't know, this year I haven't seen that from him.
No, and like there's actually been like stuff this year where he's actually kind of like he's actually kind of gotten lost on defense where he loses someone entirely and gives up a huge shot late in the game, which for your like max contract player or whatever, that's not what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, they got a bunch out of that, and that trade's not even close to paying off yet. Like we're gonna kind of see, but I mean, to give up your 2025 unprotected and then give up a swap in 2026 when you're also going to be probably awful. I mean, the Spurs could be a good team by then and still picking in the top 10 because Atlanta's so incompetent.
Yeah, they really just everything just they thought they had a vision. The vision was more blurry than they thought it was, and now they regret it because obviously we're hearing trade rumors. You don't get trade rumors for no reason, and now they know whether. And most likely, DeJounte will not be an Atlanta Hawk. And to think that they gave up so much draft capital for him to now, a year later,
Right.
To have buyer's remorse already, it shows you that the rest of the team you didn't develop properly. That shows, and it just wasn't a good fit. Having two guards like that, and especially DeJounte, who was not playing the defense that we thought he was going to play.
Trae's backcourt mate has to be like a DPS swing, like a Devin Vassell who doesn't need the ball to be successful. Like Trae needs the ball in his hands, and he needs to play with kind of a dominant big like that. Like the Trae Young Victor Wembanyama thing would work. Like that would work.
It would.
It would be about surrounding. Yeah, and if you continue like we've seen this year, I'll have to pull it up to see what he's shooting this year. But like when you're talking about a guy like, Jeremy Sohan who couldn't shoot, and now he's shooting 37.5% from three this year on 104 attempts. Like you surround him with guys like that, like Vassell, and then whoever you decide to fill that fifth starter spot with guys that can shoot, basically. And all of a sudden, like you have floor spacing, and Trae obviously can do his thing. Like it becomes a scary thing because like now the Trae is bad on defense thing is overrated because Trae's not bad on defense. Trae's just physically limited because of his build. But Trae competes on defense. And if he's going to compete on defense and has a 7'5" security blanket at the rim, well, then all of a sudden Trae is going to be a lot better on defense because you're not going to be blowing by and getting to the rack.
Yep.
I just think that I think that marriage is like exactly what, like if you're San Antonio, and we've talked about this, whenever you make the big move, it has to be calculated and it has to be the right fit, and you have to be pretty sure it's going to work. This is it. This is the fit at least. Like you want that lead guard, and he's got lead guard capabilities. You have kind of the shooting wings or whatever you need to kind of like Sohan can guard first options for other teams. Like he's good enough on defense to do that.
He just makes life for Victor Wembanyama so much easier.
And it's crazy because like even with hard life, like Victor Wembanyama is basically averaging like 25 and 10 and 24 minutes over the last like month or so because he's on that minutes restriction. And that's the crazy thing is that's what people who really don't watch the league haven't figured out is he's only playing 24 minutes a night. And he's playing like one of the 20 best players in the league. Like What's going to happen when they don't restrict his minutes anymore once his ankle's healthy? I'm watching Cedi Osman cut to the goal and get wide open looks against the Celtics because Victor Wembanyama's on the floor, and it's just like he's just the gravity he's creating. You know? I'm telling you, like I said,
he's special, man. He really is.
I gave a take the other day, and I got told I was dumb as hell for it. He has become underrated because of how much attention Chet has gotten over the course of this season. And that's not a knock on Chet. That's legitimately just like, hey, Chet's playing for a winning team and Victor's not. And so, like, Victor
Wembanyama is still the rookie of the year.
But the fact that Chet's the favorite for rookie of the year, like, let's be honest, that's a joke. Like, there's no way. Like,
I agree. I'm with you on that.
Like, it's a joke. Like, I mean, what? I don't get it. Like, I mean, like, what does Chet do? He's just Victor. Like, he's Victor Wembanyama light, and that is still like an awesome basketball player. But
it's still a potential all-star level player, but like, you know, it's deeper than that too. Because I don't consider him a rookie. I think he is a second-year player, which he is. He's not a rookie, but I digress. But what Victor does on the court with way less talent is just as impressive as what Chet's doing.
Been a bad stretch. I just watched Peyton Pritchard spray Victor in the face with a 3. So, but you know, Peyton Pritchard's a really good basketball player.
He's improved. He's improved.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the Celtics are not hot take, but like, I mean, they're just so much. They're like leaps and bounds to me, the best team in basketball right now.
They don't lose at home, right? They're 19-0 at home.
Well, and then defensively
with Porzingis now, it's.
But here's the thing on defense too, and this is what people don't talk about is, like, if you're an opposing team's lead guard, you're drawing Drew Holiday, and if you can beat Drew off the dribble, the help side defense is Derek White. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the switch, who is also like an incredible defender. Like, they've gotten to the point where they can almost like. I mean, in this league, you're never really truly eliminating lead guards, but like, they can legitimately make your life like
miserable.
Hell. Yeah, they make your life miserable. They never lose in the Garden, literally never. Their winning percentage in the Garden here is 100.
They're 19-0,
20-0. This one's just not over yet.
About to be 20-0.
Yeah, about to be 20-0. And you've got guys like Tatum and Brown who are like legitimate stars. Tatum's probably a superstar. Brown's probably just kind of a star, but you know, they have a Batman and Robin thing with an elite defense and capable shot makers. They've got a deep bench. The only question is whether or not they've got the guy on the bench that can lead them to the promised land in the coach's chair. And if they, you know,
if they don't win the championship this year,
he's got to go.
But forgetting injury, let's take injury out of this. Because obviously that changed everything. But they're healthy. They got if they're the Celtics who we're seeing right now and they don't win a championship, I don't think he's going to last as the coach.
Yeah.
I think they try to get someone else in there. Well, I don't know who that is, but I think because they are the best team in basketball. And like you said, I don't think it's close. Like, they are leaps and bounds better than every team. Like, Milwaukee will give him a shot, but Milwaukee's defense is just not good. And with all those guys that Boston has, you got 4 guys who've averaged 20 points a game, and then Derek White too.
Yeah,
that's a recipe for disaster for Milwaukee if they were to play them in a series.
The problem with Milwaukee is just that when you're so bad defensively, anybody is alive in a playoff series against you. Like, this is what happens in Miami is like when you can't guard, anybody can beat you. Like, I'm not saying anybody will beat you, but anybody has the capability to beat you because they're going to be in every game. You're not going to be able to blow anybody out.
Yeah, and now Boston has rim protection. Yeah, it was Porzingis which something they didn't have last year, and why they lost to Miami and were down 3-0 at one point in the series because they didn't have that rim protector and all that. And now they they have that now. So, I mean, if they don't get to the finals, yeah, he's going to be in trouble with this job. He's definitely going to be in trouble.
Yeah, there's no question. There's no question. Shout out to Killian Hayes, man. Killian Hayes cashed my over 6.0 assist thing in the second quarter.
Man,
Brother
Hayes.
is fishing it tonight. Like,
I thought he was going to be so much better, man. I really messed up on that. That was my first year, like, really getting into the draft, and I blame Kevin O'Connor for getting me in the Killian Hayes hype, because he got me hyped up for him, and I was like, all right, I'm buying into it. I was wrong.
Yep.
He's not a good NBA player. I still think he's still young. He's only like 22, which is still crazy. Yeah. I still think he could be a solid player, but not as good as I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to change. He needs to change the scenery, because the fans hate him there.
They despise him. They absolutely. He's that guy. He's like that. He's there. Yeah, he's like Frank Ntilikina for. Like, he's just, you got to get out of there. Like, I still think there's some. He still has he's skill. He has skill. It's just, and his passing is good. He's a good defender. Just his shot is not consistent enough, and all that. Yeah. And
Vic has Wembanyama has 16 with 8 minutes left in the second quarter.
Special. All right.
I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know. That's why I got so mad. Like, people because when you really watch players before they get drafted, and like you see this stuff, and and then we released our preseason players list, and he was below Drew Holiday, and I literally lost it.
I had him. I think I had him like top 25.
I know, like, I'm pretty sure Mo didn't rank him at all, and I was just like, that's insanity. That's insanity.
And I usually don't like. I think we did it the year before. I didn't have any rookies on there, I believe. Even though I wanted to put Paolo in there, because I thought Paolo was a top 50 player out the gate, but I was like, I'm not. Victor Wembanyama is a top 25 player right now. I don't care. He's never played. And this is against of what I believe. Our system, but he's a top 25 player before he's even played an NBA game, and I truly will go. Yep. I believe that 100%. And
yep,
he's
like
shown that.
Jason Tatum just tried to shoot his like patented one-legged fadeaway over him, and
he can't do it.
No, and Victor contested it, and he had to throw like a bullet pass and just hope that it found somebody, because that's all. That's literally.
And this is just his first year of adapting to the States and adapting to playing basketball in the States.
And he literally turned 20 last week.
He just turned 20. The sky is it's really scary. Just go get him Trae Young, though. Go get him Trae Young. But that's going to end it for this show. We're going to continue watching some basketball and all that. But that's Walker. I'm Chris. Off the Ball Podcast. We out.